Perfectly timed the music there, Allison. Good evening, everyone joining us on Zoom, Facebook Live, and YouTube. Bonsoir et bienvenue à toutes et à tous sur Zoom, Facebook, ou YouTube. I want to welcome you all to Heritage Talks, brought to you by the Quebec Anglophone Heritage Network. Je vous souhaite la bienvenue à Heritage Talks, présenté par le Réseau du patrimoine anglophone du Québec. My name is Glenn Patterson, and I'm the digital media specialist and one of the project directors at Quan. Working the Zoom and live streaming tech production today is my colleague, the talented Allison Kirkwood. And helping with the tech over in our remote studio this evening in Bonne-Espérance on the Lower North Shore is Priscilla Griffin of the Coasters Association. We're so glad to have their local support, and it's really made it possible for us to welcome three of our featured guests this evening. Heritage Talks is a series that's made possible thanks to the generous support of the Zeller Family Foundation, as well as Canadian Heritage and the Townshippers Foundation. We also have a bit of additional support for tonight's presentation from the folklorist, Dr. Sheldon Posen. Sheldon was the speaker on our first Heritage Talk earlier this season. You should check out his talk about lumber ballads in the Ottawa Valley community of Chapeau. That was back in February. You can find that on our YouTube channel. I want to tell those of you joining us tonight just a bit about our organization. I realize not everyone out there knows about us. So Quan, the Quebec Anglophone Heritage Network, we empower and advocate for Quebec's English-speaking heritage sector. We have several hundred members across the province, from the Pontiac to the Lower North Shore and Magdalen Islands, and just about everywhere in between. Our members include small museums, archives, libraries, historical societies, and anyone with an interest in the history and heritage of Quebec's diverse English-speaking communities. We're a nonprofit, membership-based organization that's open to all, regardless of place of residence or language. So for those joining live, we're running a special promotion tonight. During the length of this live broadcast, we're giving 30% off the cost of an individual year-long membership. So for $20, you can become a member of Quan, which, among other perks, comes with a subscription to our beautiful quarterly magazine, Quebec Heritage News. Here's a recent copy. This is filled with wonderful editorials, articles on local history and heritage topics, book reviews, and news from our network. So if you're on Zoom, send us a message in the chat box to claim your discount, and we'll get in touch with you after. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, send Quan a message there or to our email address, home@qahn.org. Make sure to provide your name, mailing address, and email. We also do accept e-transfers and PayPal to that same email address, home@quan.org. So among our many other activities, each year we run a free public lecture series called Heritage Talks. The theme of our 2026 season, it's extra special for me because it's all about musical heritage in Quebec's English-speaking communities. And this is something I've been interested in for the last 2 decades. In my travels throughout the province for both Quan and my academic research, I've seen firsthand how central musical culture is in bringing communities together and expressing their senses of belonging and rootedness in the province. So whether this is at a crowded downtown venue in Montreal, a rural kitchen party or square dance, in lumber or hunting camps, or in one of many of Quebec's historic English-speaking churches, musical heritage has formed part of the backbone of our cultural vitality. So I invite you all to check out and register for some of the other talks in our 2026 series. The remainder are all in person, so check out where those are happening. And if there's any nearby, try to come over and see us. They're all free. So for our 4th talk of the 2026 season, I'm excited to welcome today's guests who will help us make the musical voyage virtually to the English-speaking communities in one of Quebec's most geographically remote regions, the Lower North Shore. At the center of tonight's presentation is our moderator and presenter. Louise Abbott is a writer, photographer, and filmmaker who has researched the history of the Lower North Shore for over 4 decades. She's the author of 2 books about the region, The Coastway and Islands of History. She has also produced numerous films about the Lower North Shore for the Whiteley Museum called In Their Own Voice, Stories and Songs from St. Paul's River, capturing the region's unique culture, history, and maritime life. Joining Louise are 3 of her friends from St. Paul's River. Fishing, shipping, guiding, maintenance, bridge building, road construction. Roger Roberts has worked many jobs, but music has been a constant in his life. As a child, he sang a cappella at his family's winter home in St. Paul's River or summer cabin on Caribou Island. When a family friend gave him a guitar, he taught himself to play by watching local musicians. He and 3 friends eventually formed a band, and today he performs country songs and traditional folk music for community events and local radio broadcasts. After pursuing higher education, Tony Roberts returned to his hometown of St. Paul's River to work as a teacher. He later became school principal before returning to teaching. He's long been active in the community, serving on the board of the Coasters Association. Although not a musician, he grew up with traditional music. His father, Jack Roberts, was a fiddler, and his uncle, Leslie Roberts, played accordion. Both were well-known local performers. Tony's father and grandfather established Ladies' Night on Caribou Island, the subject of tonight's talk. Val Conway was born in St. Paul's River and has lived there most of her life, spending summers in nearby Salmon Bay. Before her retirement, she worked at the local fish plant where, as she told me, she did it all: heading, salting, washing, weighing, and carting the fish. She grew up singing hymns around her grandmother's pump organ. She went to her first Ladies' Night house dance in Salmon Bay in the early 60s when she was 14 years old. Hi, Louise, Roger, Tony, and Val. I want to welcome you to Heritage Talks. And before the 4 of you come on the air, I believe we're going to start with a lovely intro video that Louise prepared to help set the tone for tonight's show. All right, our friends Louise, and we've got Tony, Val, and Roger over in St. Paul's River at the Coaster's office. You guys can all unmute yourself. Louise, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Glenn. Good evening, everyone. That was part of Take Me Up to See Granny, played by Fred Marshall, and the aerial footage was shot by my in-house drone pilot and husband, Niels Jensen. It was actually at Stick Point, which is near St. Paul's River. Fred Marshall was originally from Labrador, but he lived for many years in the tiny community of Belzamour on the Lower North Shore, and he played with a local band, which included Chesley Griffin, who runs the general store in St. Paul's River. I'm Louise Abbott, and it's my pleasure to welcome you this evening to our webinar on the music and dance traditions of Anglophones on the Lower North Shore, or the Coast, as it's called. I'd like to introduce our panelists, who are all from St. Paul's River: Valerie Cates Conway, Roger Roberts, and Tony Roberts. And we'd love to know where you're tuning in from. So please use the chat box to tell us. I know we have a crowd watching at the Whiteley Museum in St. Paul's River, including a documentary crew from TV5, and they've been exploring the Route Blanche, which is the snowmobile trail along the coast, and the impact of climate change. So I'd like to welcome them. We also have Pamela Baker, who is a descendant of the Whiteley family, major players in the cod fishing operations on Bonne-Espérance Island in the late 19th century and early 20th century. We're here to celebrate the music and dance of get-togethers known as times, which shorten long winters and help coasters commemorate their history. But before our panelists take up the conversation, I'd like to give you some background about the Lower North Shore, because I know some of you aren't familiar with this remote region of Quebec. So I have a map to orient you. So I think Allison's going to bring up the map. Thank you. I think often people get confused between the Bas Saint Laurent and the Basse-Côte-Nord. So the Lower North Shore, there's actually the North Shore, the Middle North Shore, and the Lower North Shore. And the Lower North Shore runs from the Natashquin River east to the Labrador border. And it's it's a short ferry ride from Newfoundland over from St. Barbe, Newfoundland to Blanc Sablon, and then you travel west to St. Paul's River. So you can see all of that on the map. So it is really quite distant from Montreal and other major centers in Quebec. And so there's a lot in common with Labrador and Newfoundland. When Kwan suggested holding this webinar, I was really keen because, as far as I know, nobody has ever written or spoken at length about the music and dance traditions of Anglophone coasters, and most of the villages on the coast are Anglophone. They're also Francophone, Innu, and bilingual communities. To understand the origins of the music and dance traditions, we need to understand the origins of the residents. And so I'll take St. Paul's River as an example. Some of the early 19th century settlers came from England, others came from the United States, and then still others arrived from elsewhere in Quebec. So there were Francophone families who, over the generations, became anglicized. But the biggest wave of settlers came from Newfoundland or Labrador, beginning in the 1870s. So the firmest imprint on music and dance for Anglophone coasters has been the folk music and dance traditions of Newfoundland and Labrador. So I thought we'd hear a bit of accordion music played by a gentleman named Ted Bobbitt. I recorded it in Harrington Harbor in 1982 when I started to do documentary work on the coast. Ted was 81 at the time and he was living in the Hod Pavilion. So here we have Ted Bobbitt. Pamela Baker probably recognized the scenes. They were set on the island of Bonne-Espérance with the Whiteley cod fishing operations. And thanks to the Whiteley family for much of that footage. So the tune, Eyes the By, is a Newfoundland folk song of unknown origin and likely dates from the 1870s, a very popular folk tune. And like Eyes the By, traditional music on the Lower North Shore often related to the fishery and was played in kitchens. So the most popular instruments were the fiddle, the accordion, and the mouth organ or harmonica. So I thought we'd play another tune by Ted Bobbitt. It's another well-known Newfoundland song, and I have trouble saying it. It's a bit of a tongue twister. It's Squid Jiggin' Grounds, and he's playing it on his mouth organ or harmonica. Ted Bobbitt.
Oh.
Okay, we'll start over.
Yeah,
Okay.
too bad.
So Squid Jiggin' Grounds was written in 1928 by a 15-year-old Newfoundlander named Arthur Scammell, and it was played on the Peace Tower Carillon in Ottawa to mark the entry of Newfoundland into Confederation in 1949, and it was inducted into the Canadian Songwriters Hall of Fame in 2011. And next we have a photograph of Charles Osborne playing the fiddle. I photographed Charles in 1983 with his fiddle in Harrington Harbor. And traditionally, when fiddlers played on the Lower North Shore, someone would often step dance to the music. And that kind of dancing can be traced to 18th century Ireland. In the early 1980s, I recorded another fiddler named Sandy Jones playing in Harrington Harbor with a young girl named Jolene Osborne accompanying him with step dancing. So we'll take a look at that video clip. Listen to the audio. And you get a sense of what they call the times. You could hear people in the background speaking and so on. There was another part of the musical tradition on the coast that was spiritual, and hymns were often played on a pump organ in a local church. I remember actually photographing a woman, I think her name was Maud Bobbitt in Chevry, beside the pump organ that she used in the local church. But Ted Bobbitt played a hymn called Jesus Savior Pilot Me on his accordion for me, and he called it his cardine. So here we'll hear Jesus Savior Pilot Me.
Jesus Savior, pilot me.
That footage of Harrington Harbor dates from, I believe, 1949 and was taken for the Anglican Church mission. Jesus Savior Pilot Me was written by an American Presbyterian minister in 1871, and his lyrics use nautical metaphors to seek divine guidance through the perils of life, life's tempestuous sea. And I was curious, how did the song reach the lower North Shore, this remote region, especially back at that time? So I began thinking about it, and one scenario would be that there were American fishermen coming up to the Bonne Espérance area. They attended church services on the island of Bonne Espérance. So some of them may have introduced the hymn, but there were also itinerant ministers and priests who traveled all along the lower North Shore, by dog team in the winter, by boat in the summer, and they came from Montreal, from Quebec City, from Drummondville, other places. So they probably were the ones that would have spread that hymn along the lower North Shore. And there was a Presbyterian church in Harrington Harbor in the 1890s, which eventually, of course, once there was the union with the Congregationalist Methodist, became a United Church, which is still in Harrington today. So I'm guessing that it was probably through those itinerant ministers and priests that the hymns like that would have migrated to the different villages on the coast. By the second half of the 20th century, the guitar was a popular instrument, and people on the coast were writing songs about their lives. I never met Tom Keats of St. Paul's River, although I'm hoping to meet his son soon in Ottawa. But Tom wrote about the traditional seal fishery. And Don Wellman, whom I have met and I filmed, lives in Brador, and he's written about his grandmother, who was a well known midwife in the region, and his father, who was a legendary trapper. And you can hear those two songs by Don in an online project that Glenn referred to, hosted by the Whiteley Museum. And Allison has kindly put the link in the chat if you're interested in pursuing that. So now we'd like to hear about our panelists' background in music. So I thought that I would start with Roger Roberts. And Roger, how did music come into your life?
Priscilla, we're just going to get you to unmute over there.
6 years old. I used to listen to my uncle or step uncle Les used to play the accordion, and my grandmother Robert, she played the accordion too. So I guess it was in the genes, and plus Uncle Jack, of course, who everybody knows how good he was playing the fiddle, and friends of mine too, and cousins that I knew, and I followed them and listened to how they played, watched them how they played the guitar. So a friend of mine gave me the guitar, didn't use it. I didn't know how to tune it even. But through trial and tribulation, I learned to play the guitar by watching my cousin play, and I mimicked him. And since then, while I've been playing all my life, more or less. There was a few years in between I haven't played, but I still play. I'm 74 years old. I still love my music. I still like my old country music and Newfoundland music and traditional music. I know a few songs, but mostly it's old American classic country, like Hank Williams, Merle Haggard. They're still a big influence on me, so yeah.
I remember,
Music.
Roger, you told me a story about singing and your parents. Maybe you could tell us
Yeah,
that story.
yeah, that's what I mean. When I was a cappella, I can't remember not singing. I can't remember not singing. I'm probably 5 or 6 years old. I used to go in bed and around 9 o'clock, I guess, and I keep everybody up because I was singing. And Mom used to tell me, for God's sake, Bride, give up singing and go to sleep. But I kept on singing anyway, so I enjoy it.
We're glad you did.
Thank you.
Now we have a picture of a place where Val spent and spends her summers, Salmon Bay, which is just a short boat ride from St. Paul's River, and it's a lovely little summer community. I think, Val, that picture dates from probably the 1960s, something like that.
Yeah,
And
1960.
1960, yeah.
Yeah.
And Val, what was your introduction to music in St. Paul's River and in Salmon Bay when your family moved out there for the fishing season?
In Salmon Bay, I guess first was the radio first, and then my cousin, he used to come down from Stick Point and Albert Goddard, and he could play the guitar and the accordion and the mouth organ and all those types of music. And then in Salmon Bay, well, I lived next door to Teresa Keats. That's the Roberts's sister. And they used to play music over there. She could play the accordion too, and her son used to play the guitar. And Dawson Poland, he was a friend of theirs. He used to come down there, and he was very gifted with musical instruments. He could play anything. So then we just get together and play and sing and dance. Of course, my first dance was over to Teresa Keats's. And first, before we could have the dance, we had to do all the work to make it, good for the dance, even take the wood stove out. So we'd get all that done, and then she'd tell us, now, tomorrow you have to come back and you have to scrub the floors and clean it up and put it all back like the way it was. So that's what we did to get the dance, because we all love to dance and sing. So I guess that's the size of it. Pardon?
There's so much music.
Yeah.
You were just surrounded by it, sounds like.
And then in St. Paul's, I also lived next door to Tony's parents, and they were really a musical family. Every Christmas, I'd go over there Christmas morning, and they'd be playing and singing, and I'd go over with the girls, and we'd dance and sing, and so I always liked the music. I like singing too, as a matter of fact, but I'm not going to sing.
Well, I thought we could listen to a tune. You mentioned living next door to Tony's parents. I
Yeah.
thought we could listen to a tune played by a St. Paul's River duo, and you're going to see them in a picture that Roger kindly sent me.
Oh, great.
Okay, moving right along now with the tune titled Red-Eared Boy.
That was Christmas, I'm sure that was Christmas.
Don't know about you, but my toes were tapping. I just learned yesterday from Glenn Patterson, who's an ethnomusicologist, a recently minted PhD from Memorial, that there is a more conventional title for that tune that we just heard, and it's actually Beldoon Quickstep. And the red-haired boy is usually ascribed to a different melody, but Glenn explained that these titles often migrate through the different melodies, and so it's not uncommon that a title would be used for another one. So let's hear another tune that just came in today, thanks to John W. Roberts, Irving Roberts' son. And it's another tune with Jack Roberts and Bill Roberts. You recognize it, I'm sure.
Now we're going to get going again with another old timer, St. Andrew.
I photographed Jack Roberts out at a place called Grucci, a summer place, in 1983, and I only wish that I'd known he was a fiddler. I didn't know that at the time. But Tony, Jack was your dad, and do you know how he learned to play the fiddle and why he chose it as opposed to, say, the accordion or the guitar?
Yes, I certainly do. To understand it, I'd like to go back a little bit in history, since I like researching things and finding out where it all started. When Carpenter came here in the middle 1800s, he used to pass and walk down the shore from Salmon Bay down towards Five, like in Middle Bay, and he passed this house, and Isidore Griffin was playing the fiddle. And that was a big thing. He was playing the fiddle and dancing and all that. Isidore Griffin was a fiddle player and a good fiddle player. All right, so the tradition of my father and his mother was related to the fiddle player, and he learned through his mother, Ned Griffin. That's where we taught Dad. That's where he started when he was very young. Actually, he was 5 or 6. Ned Griffin, which was my grandmother's brother, and they were related to the big fiddle player down the coast, Isidore, used to take him and sit him on a chair in front of him around his knee and teach him how to play the fiddle. So at a very young age, he learned. From then on, my father used to listen to Don Messer, in Nova Scotia, knew the fiddle music. He listened to it, and when the tape recorders came along later, he used to record it. So when he recorded the next day, we could hear him, in the living room or in somewhere, wherever he always had a fiddle. And he practiced the tune, and tried to get it like the players. So that's where he learned, and fiddle was his instrument. He played accordion a little. I don't think he ever played the guitar, as far as I know.
No.
And the fiddle was his thing. And he played it often. And when people came, they used to come from St. Augustine. Alf Belvin used to come down. That's when I was a kid, and I remember it well, although I was quite young. Alf Belvin used to come down and bring his accordion along, come in the house and play the accordion, and Dad played the fiddle. Other peoples came. Lonnie Griffin, for example, used to come down with his guitar and play the fiddle. So I grew up all my young years with music and dance almost every day or every second day in the house. So anyway, and at special occasions, like Val mentioned, and our neighbor and her father, Christmas. The thing is about the Robertses, I know with my father and grandmother, they were very religious people, very religious. And all those holidays like Christmas and New Year's and Easter, along with the other times, these were other things that they played to celebrate the birth of Christ or the resurrection. and they used to come from the neighbors, and they play the fiddles. They'll come and play the accordion or the song. I also have two younger brothers who played in the band too. So music's around me all my life. And my father played really, really well, until he had an accident. He had an accident I think it was in the 60s, where he lost his thumb and his finger in a skidoo accident. So he didn't play much after that. But we had his music. We had his music.
So Tony, those recordings were before the 1960s then?
Yes, some
The
of them.
recordings that we heard were before the 60s?
Some of them were in the
Early
60s.
60s.
Early 60s. Well, he played before that too, with his brothers too. He used to play, When he came back from the war, he used to play too. And he played, like I said, before he went to war too. He played in the house, when he learned how to play in his young age. Yes.
Wow. I guess the reason then that I didn't know he was a fiddler was by the 80s, he wasn't really able to play the fiddle anymore.
No, that's right. No, he never played much after that accident, because he lost the top of his finger and his thumb in the skidoo accident, and he couldn't play. But he loved music.
Now,
And
how does Leslie Roberts relate to either you or Roger? Leslie Roberts.
Dad, a stepbrother, hey, Roger?
No. It's his cousin.
Cousin, yeah.
Cousin.
Yeah.
See,
cousin.
Okay.
yeah,
We're going to
Leslie-
hear an accordion piece by Leslie Roberts.
Yes. Can I say another few little words before you play it? No?
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right, Roz.
Yeah.
So he used to play the accordion, and he worked with the Roberts, they took him in, got him reared him just like a brother. He was a brother, really. We used to say he's a brother to him. He used to play the accordion, and then sometimes we have people playing the accordion and the guitar and the fiddle.
Yeah.
And to tune that all together, was made for very lively, exciting music. And then we had the people dancing, taking a few sips of fire water, and having a really, really good time, I must say.
Okay, well, we won't have the firewire tonight, but we have the accordion piece by Leslie Roberts. Yeah, I love these toe tapping pieces. Roger, as a musician yourself, do you think that the fiddle style of coasters like Leslie, oh, sorry, he wasn't a fiddler, the fiddler style of coasters like Jack differed in any way from the traditional fiddle style of Newfoundlanders?
Yes, there's the sink of the difference. I think the Scottish from Nova Scotia, I think like Uncle Jack got mid-laundry and a couple more of them. I think more influenced by them rather than Newfoundland fiddle. But the accordion now, they played a lot of accordion like the Newfoundlanders did. They're not like the French accordion. They're not so fast in how they play it. For me, the best accordion playing, of what I find anyway, is the French. Because it's fast. It's good pace. But Newfoundlanders, no, tell you the truth, Emile Benoit and all those, they were French. They were French fiddle players. I can't remember too many English Newfoundlanders that played fiddle. I really can't. There's a couple of Kelly Russell and newer ones now, but like Emile Benoit and those guys, I mean, I had them in my house. I mean, I played with them. So they were different.
I stayed with Emile. I used to stay in Emile's house when I did a book on French Newfoundlanders, and I stayed with Emile all the time.
Yeah.
So I got to hear him playing fiddle over breakfast.
Yeah, yeah, you could play. I mean, it was difficult to follow on the guitar. I mean, the shifting of the keys and it was very difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, very difficult. Because it's
Um,
different. I think it's got a Celtic in it too. I'm not sure, but I think it did have a little Celtic and French.
But the fiddle player, oh, sorry, Raj, you finished talking?
Yeah,
Keep going.
yeah.
I just want to say a few words. Yeah, now, I did a bit of research on my father and Isidore Griffin down, the big fiddle player. Israel, not Isabel, Israel, down to Five Lake. They came, those Griffins came from England. So this fiddle player that started down, you know, in the right early 1800s, I guess,
Yes.
there when they arrived in Five Lakes, they were from England. So from
Israel.
from Israel to Dad, you know, was mostly English music and Ireland too, right? They had some Irish too.
Yeah.
Irish too. You know, that was passed on right from their original place where they came from to the lower North Shore. You know, and I know in our case with my father for sure, because I've asked him about that. Where did this started? Where did it come from? We used to ask him, Dad, the redhead boy, what does it mean? It's a tune. We know the name of a tune. Well, he said, only as far as I know, I don't know for sure. That came from the little lad, you know, they said lad in Ireland for a while. The little lad, he told me in Ireland, could play the fiddle like nobody else. So they said, well, we'll name the redhead boy after the little red lad in Ireland. That's what he told me now. I don't know if that's true or not, but anyway, because we were often, St. Anne's Reel, he told me, you mentioned that, because he was pretty religious, my father, and he said, you know, like we're Catholics, you know, and proud of it. You know, they had many saints. They had St. Anne, Saint all this, Saint that, and you know that, right? There was many saints in Catherine. He said, St. Anne's Reel, he told me, Tony, that's good St. Anne. She was a wonderful woman. She was kind, and they figured to get this tune and they play it. That's what he told me. So whether that's true or factual or not, I really don't know. But I can see probably the connection there with the religious people that they were in St. Anne and the saints, or many other Catholics.
well, it's interesting because you mentioned the Reverend Carpenter back in the 1850s and 1860s, and he was a Congregationalist minister, and he was pretty severe. I wouldn't have thought that he actually appreciated music and dancing. I think quite the contrary. But I'm glad that he managed to stamp it out on the coast.
I got a good one, too.
Tony, if you had to pick one song to represent the spirit of the Lower North Shore to someone who's never been to the coast, what would it be?
Yes, I'll do that right away, but I have to say a little thing before. Carpenter, you mentioned Carpenter. You know, Carpenter used to go and play for tunes at weddings. And he used to listen to those tunes. He was a Methodist minister. And he those plays where I went and played for out of the Lower North Shore, he said it was sinful. Why was that sinful? Because he was a Methodist minister, you know, with the live music and a few little drinks, you know, he thought it was sinful. That was Carpenter from Methodist. I just happened to have that. Getting back to your question again, Louise, what was it again? I get sidetracked and I go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. My question was, if you had to pick one song that kind of embodied the spirit of the Lower North Shore for you, what would that song be?
Yeah, that's really so hard for me to do, and I'll tell you why, because there are many. There's many good songs. To choose one of the many, like I listed, very hard to do. We have so many good songs, and so many people, artists singing. But the one that struck me the most over those years was the Coaster song that was named, I forget the name here somewhere, Coaster's Lament. And it was written and sang by a guy, I think his name was Rich Moroncy from Latavacha. It's a beautiful song representing the struggles that we had on the coast for many years with services. They talked about service, we talked about in the song, They talk about the services, the health and social services, communicating services, and this stuff, but the song was a bit long. But it's a beautiful coastal song. And since that been written a few years ago now, we've had many comments. We got some, by the way, at the poster's office. And we have many comments come back. Most people who listen to that song after it's over, as a tear come in their eyes. A tear comes in their eyes to listen and how it was written, and the beautiful words and the true words, but the struggles that we have on the Lower North Shore in terms of those services.
Thanks very much, Tony. I know that there's a song that I once heard called Il y aura toujours une place pour ton bateau, and it was about Providence Island. And I don't know whoever sang that one. If I used to love that song, I don't know if they played on the local radio station, but it was a more perhaps upbeat song, I guess. Val, what about you? Is there one song that you think sort of embodies the spirit of the coast?
The first one I thought of when I saw the question, I said, well, it's got to be Music and Friends by Semini.
Yeah.
And another one I liked is Jack of All Trades. That's by Eddie Coffey, I think. Yeah, I like those two.
Just realized I should have found out these answers before, and then we could have tried to get the music. So we'll just have to. We can look it up afterwards. Yeah. Oh, I think that Glenn has something in the chat there. Yeah.
Before we move on, Louise, the song that's so special to me, the Coasters of Men, I know, we couldn't put it together. Is there any way that song could get connected to this way somewhere now so people could listen to it and
Well, I'm not. Who has a recording of it? Because we could always.
I do.
You have a recording of it.
We can share it afterwards.
Yeah, we can share it afterwards, Tony. So you can speak to Glenn about that, and then he can send it out to people that attended the webinar. Yeah,
Okay,
I'd love to hear it too. I haven't heard it, so.
I haven't heard it.
Okay, it's absolutely beautiful. Thank you very much. A beautiful song.
Thanks very much for letting us know about it. Roger, how are you doing there? You're coughing a bit, but you were going to perform a piece for us. Are you okay to do that?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I'll try.
Okay, do your best.
This is a song written in 1950s by I think it was Fred Stubbart from Kagaska. I'm not sure, but I was told anyway. So it's called, well, we all call it the Natisquan song. Come on, you people, great and small. Come listen to my song. It's about your carbon and land from Manitoba. In 1950 was the year he left his home quite well on the hunting trip with one of his friends, with John Baptiste Purcell. They spent their fall in Old Belong Bay, and the weather became very cold. In early December, they took up their trap and starting poor old made it go. They traveled along for many a day, and the food became very low. And then at last George Carbonneau no further could he go. Now Mars still laughs and no for help, so he made George a bread to lie, and he started out for Natisquan, leaving that poor boy to die. my friend, enjoy your life. Wherever you may roam, for you never know the hour or day when you leave your friends and home. Oh, you never know the hour or day when troubles you'll all have to bear, or death is something we'll all have to pay, and something we cannot declare. Oh, a little bit hoarse.
Thank you so much, Roger. It's nice to hear a piece that was, composed by someone on the coast and played by someone on the coast. That's wonderful. We don't often get to hear that. We promised that you'd learn about a celebration called Ladies' Night that used to take place on Caribou Island and in Salmon Bay, which is, as we know, not far from St. Paul's River. And our guests will speak about this from personal experience. But first, I'm going to show you a short clip from a longer documentary I made that will give you a look at Caribou Island. And it features Roger singing Fisherman's Boy, which was written by a Newfoundland composer, Philip Leonard Crew.
I lived there on Caribou Island. Probably 1/3 of my childhood I spent on Caribou Island, 3 or 4 months of every season. We moved there from St. Paul's River to Caribou Island for the fishing, close to the fishing grounds, right? And it was a good harbor, probably one of the best harbors on the lower North Shore. It was shelter from the wind in any direction.
My dreams as a young man, a fisherman to be, I'd welcome my father home from the sea, with his hand on my shoulder and a wink in his eye. Son, oh, we'd be proud you're a fisherman boy.
My grandfather came up here in late 1800s, 1894. I guess he moved to Caribou Island because there was no other space to fish from in Salmon Bay. So he moved to Inner Seal Cove. We always called it Robert's Cove because, because of the Roberts that's who settled there. My grandfather's brother, he came up to fish too. No other families lived there, just Roberts. 4 families, yeah, with 4 families on, and each family had at least 5 to 8 kids, so.
The winter for long and the living was tough. Salt fish and oh my, there wasn't enough. He'd look at his family with a tear in his eye, saying, oh, we'd be proud you're a fisherman boy. The years have gone by now, the times they have changed. To turn back the pages, there's nothing to gain. But the things I'll remember till the day that I die. Son, oh, we'd be proud you're a fisherman boy. And oh, we'd be proud you're a fisherman boy. Sorry, I got emotional. I brought back memories.
Now, some background on Ladies' Night, which took place on August 15th. In the Roman Catholic liturgical calendar, August 15th is the Feast of the Assumption, which marks the ascent of the Virgin Mary into heaven at the end of her earthly life. And on this holy day, the faithful are expected to refrain from work and attend Mass. And in addition to feasting, a blessing of the summer harvest has traditionally taken place. In Newfoundland and Labrador, the Feast of the Assumption is known as Lady Day, and it took a different turn in the 1830s. At the request of a Newfoundland bishop, the reigning pope gave permission for fishermen to go to sea on Lady Day and raise funds for the church with fish sales. And in many communities, parishioners held suppers and dances in parish halls after the catch was processed. Then in the 20th century, St. Paul's River residents put a new spin on Ladies' Day. they introduced Ladies' Night on August 15th on Caribou Island and in Salmon Bay to celebrate the cod-trap fishery and the contribution of women to the salt cod fishery. The cod trap, it was a net invented by W.H. Whiteley, called a cod trap because it was a box-like trap. And it was a very effective way of catching cod inshore during the Capeland run. So here we have a picture of Ladies' Night on Caribou Island. I'm not sure who all the participants are, but I know one of them is Roger Roberts' brother. And I understand, Tony, that your father and grandfather established Ladies' Night on Caribou Island. Can you tell us how that came about?
Yeah, Ladies' Night, they established with his brothers, of course. Ladies' Night, what I remember when I was a kid with my father talking, I knew there was a religious connection with Ladies' Night, you know, because my father told me, and I never I forgot about it, but I knew that what the religious connection was to Ladies' Night. And now, you know, since you did the research on it, and that's so true. And of course, at the time we grew up, you know, they didn't work on Sunday. You know, Sunday was a day of rest and visits. We used to get visits on Sunday. Well, anyway, getting back to Ladies' Night, so my father, along with his brothers, and maybe a few others been involved, he said, you know, we're celebrating a lady, a special lady, you know, the Virgin Mary, being religious people and all. Well, we should do something for the ladies involved in the fishery, for their service. We should pay some kind of tribute, respect for the women. And Valerie can tell you more about the women into it because she was a part of it. So the women were involved in the fishery. So after the harvest was over in August, they celebrated Ladies' Night with the religious thing in mind, but also with the thing to it, about the women service in the fishery. And just to explain, some of the work that they did was just unbelievable, if you want to put that, say it like that, how hard most women work in the cod fishery, salt fishery, you know. Not only did they work in the fish plants and work into the, and helping us salt and clean the fish, they also worked in the home, cooking, cleaning, and taking care of what we call the shearmen. A lot of those people as shearmen, which means there was people who came and helped the owner with the fishery, and they had to cook and clean for that. So you can imagine the work that was involved with the women. And I just want to say, Val, you can talk about it because you did quite a bit of it, you know how hard it was. But anyway, just the spin the Roberts has put on it to Ladies' Night and the religious quotation is a tribute to the women and respect for the women and for their service in the fishery. And there was one particular woman, but Valerie knows more about it than I do, was just amazing.
Yeah, I told her about.
Okay, Val, yeah. Let's hear from you, Val.
I told you about Hazel Keats, and how she, you know, she went out to the traps. She did everything the man would do. She did it, and then she had a family besides. So, like I was saying, you know, when a woman goes to work, they got two jobs. They got their job at home and they got their job at work. And sometimes we had three jobs trying to do three. It was very difficult. It was hard work.
So Val, what happened at Ladies' Night in Salmon Bay?
What happened?
Well, yeah, what was it like?
Oh, it was fun. It was fun. The women got out. They got to dress up and, you know, and dance. So they really enjoyed it. Yeah, it was fun.
Was it square dancing?
Square dancing.
Was it square dancing?
Yes, square dancing, and that was quite a dance, you know. We were all slim back then because you dance all night, and the dance was so many. I don't know how you say it. So many sets, and it was so much to a square dance, right? Yeah. We ended up treading the needle, and we started with ladies in the center or whatever, you know. But it was a lot to a square dance. So by the time you were finished, you were a bit tired. I didn't get tired when I was young. I get tired now, I guess, if I had to do it.
What about you, Roger? Sorry.
Some of those dances would go on till wee hours, and I remember well on Caribou Island.
5 o'clock in the morning.
They used to come from Salmon Bay.
Yeah.
They used to women and men from Salmon Bay. We showed Caribou Island. There's other islands that play, and from Stick Point here.
Stick Point, all the islands. All the islands. Yeah.
You can imagine for a moment all those people arriving on Caribou Island. Just think of that, you know.
A little
and then not much, because the house were filled with kids. Where did they all stay for a night? Well, a lot of them stayed indoors and they slept in the grass. That was not uncommon, you know. In the middle of August, it wasn't that cold. So this was I remember it really well, you know, the song and the dance and the laughter and the fun and the singing, everything like that. And that went on all night in the morning. Sometimes later in the morning, you know, the women were maybe looking for their husbands. They were asleep somewhere, they couldn't find them. Or something like that. So they were in the tall grass in August. You know, the grass was pretty tall. And some of the guys with too much fire water slept in the grass, you know, and the women couldn't find them.
What about Roger? Do you have any other memories of Ladies' Night on Caribou Island?
Well, I remember I was 7 or 8 years old, doing step dancing to the music. Me and our cousins and my sisters used to get her step dancing, and people used to clap along with. I mean, I didn't know but when you were a kid, you were doing anything, right? But I couldn't step dance for the. But at least we had fun. Yeah, it was. I remember the good musicians. I mean, there was a couple. One guy, especially that French guy from Long Point, Canning.
Yeah.
He was good, really good. Yeah, he was fast. He was a French. Like I said, the French accordion for me was the best accordion music.
So what happened with Ladies' Night? You know, when did it all end? Roger.
Well, I'm stand to be corrected there. I told you that it might have been when my brother and his cousins got drowned. But I stand to be corrected. I think they had it once more because my niece, Calinda, was born on the 16th, and that night we were having a dance at Uncle Will's place, so maybe that was the last dance. That was in 69, maybe?
Yeah, I guess so.
I wonder if maybe the fishery was changing, Val, at that time. Do you think?
Yes, it was, because it went from the small boats to the longliners, and that changed everything.
That changed everything.
That changed people from going to the Highlands and stayed in St. Paul's, you know, and that changed everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
And even Ladies' Night ended, though, community celebrations carried on with local musicians on hand. And when Alice Martin and Gary Lassard marked their 25th wedding anniversary in 1994, they had a lively party in St. Augustine with music and square dancing and step dancing. So we're going to see a little bit of that 1994 time, you could call it, wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
One thing that I observed over the years on the coast was that I began to hear less and less fiddle music and more tunes on the accordion. And I began to wonder about that transition. And in doing some research and in chatting with Glenn Patterson, I learned that the same thing had happened in Newfoundland. And the reason was that gatherings moved out of the kitchen into community halls or other larger venues. And accordion music was louder and better suited to those larger spaces. And the accordion apparently was also easier to learn. So, Roger, do you hear much traditional accordion music these days on the coast?
Yeah, we still hear it. I mean, not all parties, but a lot of parties I went to with accordion. We had an accordion player with us, and you know, we still played the traditional tunes like Freddie. Freddie was a friend of mine, good friend of mine, and me and Lawrence Griffin that accompanied down Road Jack there on the fiddle. He was our lead guitarist. So I mean, but Freddie was really, he was the best ever I heard around here.
Oh, yeah.
He was the best. He was the best. By far the best musician ever I played with.
Yeah, Freddie, just to remind people, he was the one that we heard at the very beginning. We heard an
Yes.
excerpt from Take Me Up to See Granny. Yeah, I love that piece too.
Yeah. And
I know that there's, sorry, go ahead.
you could play the accordion too. I mean the fiddle too, and the mouth organ.
Oh, I didn't know
And
that.
lead guitar.
Wow,
You
he
could
was
do anything.
You could sing too.
polyvalent. Yeah.
Did you ever hear the song Kitty's Barn?
I don't know that one.
I'll send it to you.
Okay, thank you.
He
I know
wrote
that there's a summer music festival at Salmon Bay. Do any of the musicians play some of the traditional music out at the Salmon Bay festival?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, they think they all get together, they have a day for,
Traditional music.
for everybody to go and
Yeah, yeah.
play.
Yeah, it was
Whoever wants-
open mic,
Yeah,
more or less.
open
Open
mic,
mic.
yeah, that's
More or less.
more or less, and that's what they, yeah.
Yeah. There's people from Chevry and, well, I think there's gonna be more this year. I think there's gonna be a few from Tefacture, gonna be down there. Richard's gonna be one,
There's
Richard
going to be more,
Mojay.
yeah.
I know him too. He's a good musician too. I mean, I known him a long while. He is good.
Right, then, yeah.
And the local radio stations, do they play this sort of combination of contemporary music and still some of the old time? Because we were able to
They
get some of the tunes
They do,
from the
because I
local.
was,
Yeah.
They do stuff, but some of the stuff that I don't know about. Some of the stuff that they put on, I don't know. It's supposed to be traditional music. I guess it's to each his own, I guess, but that's my opinion.
Yeah. Well, we're very appreciative of the radio station in Blanc Sablon providing us with a lot of the tunes that
Oh,
we
yeah,
that we heard today.
I'm not saying that. I mean, what I'm saying is sometimes there's too much of this, but not enough good traditional music. If you know what I'm trying to get at.
Well, we'd
There's
like to
some-
thank the three of you for sharing your stories and thoughts with us. And we'd like to thank all of you for watching and listening, but we hope you're going to stay for our question and answer period. But before we start to field questions, we're going to hear a piece by country artist Jessica LaValle. Jessica grew up in Lourdes de Blanc Sablon, listening to her father play the guitar, fiddle, accordion, and harmonica, another multi-talented musician. She made her performance debut at a local festival when she was just 6 years old. She recorded a piece called No Stoppin' Love when she was 12. And Jessica later appeared on Canadian Idol 2 times and made the top 10 on Country Music Television's Karaoke Star. And we'll put her website, I think probably Allison has already put, we put a couple of links in the chat for Jessica's website and also a charming interview with her. And now here we're going to hear her play No Stoppin' Love. It's hard to believe that she did this at 12 years old. It's a wonderful piece.
When the sun is shining, I feel so good. When I'm with you, I feel like I should. Oh, there's a fire inside, baby, burning deep. It's a love thing, honey, that's shaking my feet. I'll never look twice at anybody else. As long as you love me without any guilt. Got a new attitude.
That was wonderful. Thank you, Louise, and our three friends over in St. Paul's River. So it's time for the Q&A now. Um, so for our Zoom participants, you can turn on your webcams if you haven't already. If you have a question, the easiest way to let us know is there's a quote unquote raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom window. You can click that and it'll show us you have a question and we'll queue you up. You can also just let us know that you have a question in the chat box on Zoom, or you can write your question there. Similarly, if you're on Facebook or YouTube, just leave your questions in the comments section. I want to start by asking, for our three friends over in St. Paul's River, we finished there with a song from, one of the younger community members, and she recorded that. I think she told me when she was 12. What's, the youth involvement in music like? Traditional music, but then music more generally. Are the younger generations picking up music still?
Not many, but a few, yeah. The only one I know is Nicholas Thomas, the younger generation.
Huh?
It's the only one I know is Nicholas. I know anyone else.
Yeah. Well, no, Jordan
Oh, Jordan, yes, that's true. Jordan
and Chloe.
and Chloe.
There's a lot of young musicians there that we don't know about.
We don't know about it for sure, yes.
I'm putting that one there now, Jody Robertson. Is a musician, I think.
Is the fact that, I know the road doesn't go all the way through the coast, is the transportation one of the things that makes is it difficult to know about what's going on in other communities down the coast as far as music is concerned?
Yes.
It
Well, yeah,
doesn't help for sure.
yes. It's a
Yes.
deterrent for sure.
Yeah.
It is, because you can't visit each other,
No.
In the winter, it's on skidoo, and
In the
like
summer-
my age now, I don't feel like going on a skidoo up to St. Augustine or to Thatcher or wherever, right? It's a too long drive for me now.
Yeah.
But yeah, if we had a road, it'd be more interest, because it'd be people traveling back and forth. It's easier to get people into the music again.
These are all barriers, you're right, Raj, that does affect,
It does,
as a
it does, big
information
time.
from village to village.
Yeah.
But that in mind, yeah, it is true.
Yeah.
But for me now anyway, comparing the way I learned to live with music compared to my grandchildren today, is so much different. It's so much different. I have to be honest, most of them, if not all, but I think there are a few, but the younger generation today, you know what I mean? They'll come in the house with their laptop or their computer or their phone, and they're really, really busy with that. But there are a few, but not anything close in comparison to what the way we did it when we were their age.
Mostly,
Singing or
They got
coming
so
with a
much
piece of-
today, and that is why that song, Closer as a Man, that's exactly some of the issues that's in that song. It's really a nice song about the North Shore.
The only thing-
to change it. Yes, right.
The best thing now for me, we can get our music out there more, because of Facebook. Like we can, we got a place, we got a group together, Accessibility to Lower North Shore or something like that, the music
Yeah.
of Lower North Shore.
I saw that, yeah, I think so.
And there's a lot of people, that even from Quebec is on it. I mean, there's a lot of good musicians, even, they're French, yes, but they're really good musicians. And with that, I think it opens up a lot too that way. You get recognized by, have to be songs that people like too.
When was the change? When did that change occur, Val? Do you remember when you started? I'm wondering if it was tied in any way to the students going out to school and maybe just not learning, that tradition was not being passed down because they were going out to Alexander Galt or different high schools and so on. Do you think that was
That's for sure. That made a big difference.
Yeah.
And they were gone so young and, you know, and by the time they got back, well, they were, you know, just wasn't there anymore.
I remember leaving the coast when I was quite young, in junior high school or elementary school, and this type, what they were talking music at the North Shore was still happening. So after going out to coming back, American coming back, we did really lose a lot.
Yeah.
And today, you know, it's not only in terms of music, you know, I don't know if not communicating or there's a few, like I don't deny that, but there's a lot today, the younger generation, they're into to let that the music on there. I know with my grandchildren too, you know, they like music, but they don't know too much about traditional music, I have to be honest with you. And it seems like, you know, like I did in a certain way when I went out to school and I came back and I got out there and I got into the Beatles, you know, and all those bands. I thought I was a Beatle at one time. I cut my hair right when I had a Beatles sign. You know, I wasn't too interested in coming back so I was going to listen to accordion music or step dancing. I was pretty cool. I tell you that, and I wasn't the only one. You know,
That's true.
The thing is, it was a big change, and Valerie's right.
Yes, I know.
When we left and come back, you know, it's still happening, but you know, we weren't too interested in Johnny Cash and Wilf Carter. I'm telling you, when I came back, I was into the Beatles, twisting, shouting, jumping around, and you know, all them, Clarence Revival, whatever they were my era then. So that sort of music that I grew up with, I wasn't too interested when I got a cool teenager. I'm telling you that right now.
Well, a few of us sound like that. I mean, not everybody that got into rock and roll, not everybody. I mean, there's a lot of people my age and younger, but we're younger than Tony.
Not a lot.
You know, I know, but I mean, I'm younger. And like, for me, I never got rid of my roots. I didn't. I still played rock and roll. I played it in the band that I played. I played rock and roll too, but it was different. It was a tool, more or less, to get people dancing. But if you want to listen to music, you listen to the lyrics, not the beat. You know? And music, there's a lot of different genres of music. If you want to if you want to have quiet, you listen to classical music. You know, calm you down a bit.
You mentioned lyrics there and how important they are to you. I know we were talking when we met up last week on Zoom. There was a song you wanted to share about your family. I know it's a bit of a sad song, but would you mind sharing that song? And you feel free to say anything you want about it as well.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's a long time coming. I did this about 10 years ago. I wrote it. I haven't sang it much because it's emotional. In the spring of 1966, three young men left their home on a burning trip up to Burn Isle, where they did roam. The weather being clear that morn, the wind 5 knots or so. It stayed that way till the afternoon, when it began to blow. No one was concerned at the start. They did this trip before. They often went out and ducks all day like anymore. The coming of the darkness brought their worries to the fore. They knew they should have been at home long before the dusk. all night and day, nobody did they find, until the day they found his capsized boat into the sea. We knew for sure that our loved one no more would we see. Everybody had their care and needs, what happened on that day. Of this we will never know, that's all that I will say. To the parents and their family, the grief was hard to bear. Friends and relatives tried to best to grieve the pain and drear. Time has passed since that day, still weighs upon our mind. No bodies were ever found, no closure of any kind. We all will take to our graves of this, I am so sure. Then we will meet our brothers up on that golden shore. Was 50 years ago today since they went away. The reason why I wrote this song of Robert's tragedy, Grandpa Gavin and Andrew, they're gone, but the rest is sure. You'll never be forgotten, and we miss you as before.
Very,
That's
very touching, Roger. Thank you for sharing that. You know, I think something we talked about last week when we met on Zoom. You know, an event like that can really change a community. It seems like maybe that had something to do with sort of the end of Ladies' Night on Caribou Island. I know you mentioned a little bit before, but maybe you want to, if you have anything else you want to say about that, I'm happy to hear.
Yeah. No, well, everybody was affected by the accident. I mean, not only St. Paul's River, but I mean, from St. Augustine down to maybe Red Bay. It's affected by it. Because in some ways, you know, everybody knew everybody. Some were related. And it was terrible. It was terrible. And the worst part was no bodies. We didn't find anything. We couldn't put a closure to it. We couldn't bury him.
It's the same thing happened to my husband's brother. He went off too, and we never ever found anything. He went off in boat and never found anything. Only the boat bottom up. That's all.
And there's been quite a few boat accidents on the lower North Shore in each village.
Yeah.
Just recently, the terrible one in Blanc Sablon, you know, where the fishing sank and all those young men lost their lives. And most every village on the coast, because we live on the water.
We live on the sea.
Yeah, we live on the sea, well, fishing and recreation and everything, you know.
Yeah.
And each village on shore, you know, I know Old Fort is another place where they lost young people. Yeah. And many places on the coast, you know, those tragedies. And it really affects the garage and everybody, you know, because we know most all the people on the coast. It's a small community, and now we travel there with skidoo and boats, so that we know those people. And you know, it's been really hard, especially for us, like Raj said. My brother was in that accident, and I'm sure it's for all the same other families, you know, who lost people at sea and so young, they were young men. 19 and 20 and 20, most of those accidents were.
19, 24.
Yeah, to 24. And like most other places too, that both that Capside and the Blanc Sablon, the boat from it was Blanc Sablon. Just recently there was young men lost there as well. So,
It's part of being a fisherman, I suppose, or whatever.
we're a fishing community, most of us.
Being on the water.
Fishery. And, we spend a lot of time on the water. We're out in seas and rough water and fog and wind. And unfortunately, it takes its toll.
Roger, I have a favor I want to ask. A colleague of mine, her name's Dr. Heather Sparling. She's at Cape Breton University. She has a website called Disaster Songs. So she's been collecting songs written in Atlantic Canada about this kind of thing, shipping accidents, disasters. So get in touch with me and send me those lyrics. I'm sure I'll put you in touch with Heather. I'm sure she'd love to have the words at least to your song or any recording. But she's trying to catalog all the sort of songs of that nature that have been written around the Atlantic provinces. So it'd be great if you were willing to share it with her project.
I will.
Yeah.
And what about that Natus Clan? Do you want that one too?
Yeah, please. Any song you feel like playing. It doesn't have to be a sad one,
I
Roger.
haven't got the ownership. I don't even know who the writers were, but I was told this was, pretty stubborn, but I don't really know. But I don't think it'd be any problem there. Because, there's a lot of people don't know this song. Really?
This is a region that I think a lot of people, when we think about Atlantic Canada, we think of Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, maybe PEI. We don't think about Quebec's Lower North Shore or the Gaspésie, but there's a rich tradition of obviously living close to the sea and music. And I know, Tony, you were down in Gaspé. Actually, both of you, Tony and Roger, did their schooling down on the Gaspé Peninsula. It's very common. So there's a lot of exchange between, the people in the Magdalen Islands, Gaspé, the Lower North Shore. So, birds of a feather, I guess.
Sorry. I got the song about Coffin, too, the Coffin Affair.
I know that. I might know that one. Do you know, is it the Prospector's Last Letter?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, I know the person. I know the.
I did it already.
I know the person that wrote that song, Milton McGregor from Barishaw.
Oh yeah.
On the Gaspé coast. Yeah.
Well written.
Lovely, beautiful song.
Yeah.
Glenn, the song Coastal's Lament, written and sung a lot of things like we're talking about here, with the coast and the tragedies and lack of service and that song. So Glenn, if you want me, I got it at the house, so I can send you. It's a beautiful song.
Please do.
Long. Did you write?
Yeah.
I didn't.
I did see a few questions came in on our chat box here. Our Quan's president, Jody Robinson. Tony, I think you were thinking of another Jody Robinson, but I'm pretty sure this is Quan's president. She lives down in the Eastern Township. She was asking you three, which was the most popular, most common instrument on the Lower North Shore between the accordion, harmonica, fiddle, and guitar, or possibly other instruments. Which was the most popular?
Guitar.
Well,
I'm a little prejudiced too,
But
right?
I would say the accordion, because that's what they played at all the dances and everything. So,
or different.
that was, I like a guitar too. I'm not saying anything against a guitar. But
I would say at the beginning, I'd go back to
do the violin.
I like to do history stuff anyway. Anyway, at the beginning was definitely the fiddle, because and then came the accordion. The fiddle music was very common when I was a kid. And then the accordion came along, like Louise said, was loud, and they played it. But I remember my father playing the fiddle and a big awl too, with the accordion. You tune the fiddle with the accordion. I'm telling you, that was. You see, we had some really, really good step dancers here in St. Paul. The name of few, there was a few of them. Dorothy Griffin was one, Fred Roberts, Patrick Conway, they were others. And March, they were really good. And I often wondered, where did this come from? I asked my brother, he's into all this stuff. And he said, Tony, none of those people got the native gene. I said, what? He said, yes, they do. They got the native gene. And the native genes are really good step dancers. He said. So that's where that comes. It didn't come from England at all. learned from the Hindu. They were really good step dancers.
I want to, thinking about this
Fiddle was mine later on. I have to say it was probably the guitar, which I'll go along with you.
looks like we have a three-way tie. A three-way tie between fiddle, accordion, and guitar, depending on who you ask and when they're talking about.
I like all music.
Something I noticed, getting ready for this event on Facebook, people emailing Louise, myself, other people, it's clear there's a lot of interest. And I just want to say, if there is anyone out there, I mean, already Alice Martin sent us some music. I mean, if we have, get in touch with the Coasters or us over at Quan. I mean, it'd be great to get some more of this music. We can transfer stuff to the computer maybe and send you back the original copies. I don't know. It's, it can be a bit tricky, but let's, if you guys have tapes in basements, attics, old home recordings, like the stuff, video or audio, we're just get in touch. It'd be great to use the momentum from tonight to kind of preserve a bit of this music. Tony, looks like you got something to say there.
Yeah, very quickly, Glenn. Yes, there is. The Coasters, Priscilla, because the Coasters do have from the radio station in Arrington and St. Augustine some really, really good coast music. I'm thinking of Danny Osborne,
Yeah, I know.
And there's a few others. I got them written down there. They're really good. It used to be on the radio at Arrington one time. So we do have tapes of that at the Coasters office that was often played at our AGMs along the Lower North Shore. And then you're most welcome to it, I'm sure.
Owned by the Quebec Outdoor Foundation.
Yeah.
Musicians.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Wonderful. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap up for the evening. So I want to extend our heartfelt thanks for tonight's panelists, Louise, Val, Roger, and Tony, for sharing the sounds and stories of traditional music on the Lower North Shore. There was just, the music we heard tonight, there was just a lot of soul and a lot of feeling, a lot of joy. And you could tell it's really part of the soul of those communities and who they are. I'd also like to thank our sponsors once again, the Zeller Family Foundation and Canadian Heritage, for their support of our series. Also, the radio station in Blanc Sablon. They did send us some of the music you heard tonight. Big thanks to them. Also, I mentioned Alice Martin of St. Augustine. She sent me DVD copies of 3 home movies, including her 25th wedding anniversary, featuring music and dance that you saw earlier in tonight's presentation. Alice, your DVDs will be in the mail heading back to you tomorrow afternoon. Thanks as well to Priscilla and Jessica over at Coasters Association for their local support and use of their office as a remote studio. Also, a very special thanks to our tech producer, Allison Kirkwood, for her brilliant work behind the scenes on Zoom, Facebook Live, and YouTube. All of our Heritage Talks are archived on Quan's Facebook page and our YouTube channel, more importantly. After 30 days, all our videos get deleted, our live streams get deleted on our Facebook page. So head over to our YouTube channel, subscribe if you like YouTube, and follow us there. You can see all our old Heritage Talks. You can share them with tonight's talk or any others with friends and family, and you can browse our back catalog from the past 4 years of doing this online. Finally, I want to thank all of you who joined us today, whether that was on Zoom, Facebook, or YouTube. We appreciate your support and the lively participation you bring. So this was our final online Heritage Talk of the season, but next Thursday we'll be at the Black Watch Armory in downtown Montreal, learning all about the history of bagpiping in Quebec. Then next Sunday we'll be in Sherbrooke at Plymouth Trinity United Church for an afternoon exploring the history of organ music in that congregation, which goes back to the 1850s or 60s. Later this month, we'll be in Valcartier and Kinnears Mills, exploring more great traditional music and dance. So head to qahn.org or our Facebook page to find out about and register for our upcoming talks. That's all for today. Have a great evening, everyone.
Glenn, Far Over the Sea?
Far Over the Sea. We have another song
Yeah.
that was sent to us at the 11th hour. Allison, you want to cue up that's an old Carter family song that we have a guitar picking version that someone who performed
Lawrence
this,
Griffin.
Louise? Lawrence
Lawrence
Griffin.
Griffin. Yeah, lovely song.